welcome. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for coming. And RevU, for those of you who's here for your first time, raise your hand. I know there's several of you. Okay, good. Awesome. Good, good. Welcome. It's nice to have you. This is a once a month fun thing that we do. It's a community service that we offer where we open our doors to the public and invite anyone that's involved in the entrepreneurial ecosystem to participate. As you're here, I would encourage you to meet someone new. If it's your first time, that'll be easy, right? And if you've been here before, it should also be easy because there's lots of new folks. That'll give you a chance to get to know some of them as well. This is something we put on with a very specific intent and focus, and that is we want to help the entrepreneurship or the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and specifically entrepreneurs in it, succeed. So some of the folks who are here are investors. Some of the folks who are here are entrepreneurs. Some of them are actually operators who are looking for cool opportunities for them to use their time and their talents. And so you never know who you'll find or meet that might be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. So please be sure to introduce yourself. Today, our presenters are going to be Dr. Marc Liebman and Jason Caldwell. Jason is our COO and a co-founder here. Has incredible background and experience in working across a number of different industries. Has worked in military intelligence, is one of our veterans, so grateful for that. Has been in a lot of the places where people don't want to go. He's one of those folks who, you know, danger happens and people are running the other way and he's running towards it. That's how I would describe Jason. He's also a fluent Italian speaker, fluent Arabic speaker, has worked on some of the most important things that have helped to keep us and others safe. And he could tell you all about it, but then he'd have to kill you afterwards. So you can ask if you want. It's up to you. We're thrilled with what he does here because he's taken that experience that he's gained with the military, with Boeing, and with other big organizations in operations and applies that with operations and strategy to the companies that we work with and helps them in those ways. Marc Liebman is has an amazing career as an educator. He started off as a kindergarten teacher and continued his career as a teacher, as a principal, as a school district administrator, and eventually as a superintendent of 3 different school districts in California, including Silicon Valley. In his roles in education, he's always been a pioneer. He's always found ways to help create growth for student achievement, as well as personal growth and character growth in his staff and in his students. I've had the pleasure of working with him in a number of those capacities and roles through my career, and it's been interesting to see. He doesn't just look through the lens of education, he understands business. And so it was because of that understanding and that unique kind of perspective and marriage of skills that IBM brought him on board, and he started he was the one who started their education consulting business. And that's grown to be a huge part of their business. He has been an advisor to some of the largest educational publishers in the world, such as Pearson. I had the privilege of hiring him at Imagine Learning, a Utah company just up the road here with about 500 employees that we founded, and being able to have Marc join our executive team as Chief Academic Officer. Here at RevRoad, he brings all of that background and skill in working with people and organizations and systems to bear as he leads our efforts with attracting and retaining top talent and providing great matches with mentors. So it's really fun to have the opportunity to work with him every day. He also happens to be one of my diving buddies, which is awesome. So really enjoy that. I think you all will get a chance to, enjoy having a chance to get to know him. Please remember that this is interactive. It's workshop. Would like to have you participate. So as we go through today's activities, raise your hand, ask questions, you know, share a comment. And if you're one of those social folks, you can be sure to use the hashtag RevU. And you can also find us using our handle @RevRoadUtah. All right, with that, I'd like to introduce Jason and Marc. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Thanks, Darren. So just kind of a clarification on something that Darren said. I am no longer fluent in Arabic and Italian because I don't practice it very much. First thing that I'd like to say, I'm going to kind of set the premise and get things going here and then hand it off to Dr. Liebman. And he likes it when I say that. But the first thing I want to say is I just really want to thank you all for coming out. It is really cool that you guys come out here. We see a lot of familiar faces and then several new faces every month, and it's really neat to see that participation from the community. And being here for these events and supporting us, we really appreciate you coming out. And we do hope that you learn a few things, that you leave here with some takeaways, that you get a good free lunch, and that you also stick around for our featured founder afterwards, because those are always very good stories of their successes and of their failures, and you can relate to that, and it will help you in your entrepreneurial journey as well. And then we hope you stick around and network. This is a great networking opportunity. There's a lot of really cool people in this room, so make sure you take advantage of that. All right, let's switch over to the slide deck there, Tigran. Nope. That's it. So today we're going to talk about talent. So just to kind of set that up, there's different things that people think of when they think of talent and how they go about acquiring talent, recruiting talent, putting a team together of talented people. So what we're going to do today is kind of go through that whole process. So we're going to talk about articulating your needs, figuring out where your needs are. We're going to talk about going out and actually doing the recruiting. Where do you go do that? We're going to talk about interviewing. That'll be fun. We're going to talk about then making offers, employment contracts, that kind of thing. And then we're going to talk about retention as well, because once you spend all this effort and energy going out and finding these people and getting them in, you want to keep them around. So we'll talk about retention as well. And then we'll have a couple little other considerations at the end for you to take away. All right. But first thing we want to do is set the mood for today. So we got a quick video. It's a 2-minute video. Please just sit back, relax, and enjoy this. But this to get our minds thinking about this process of going out and finding talent.
There's no jobs for manager. It's just for counter.
Good. I'm looking for the least possible amount of responsibility.
Mr. Huff, Mr. Jenner is ready for your interview.
Actually, we'll be interviewing as a team.
Do you have any special skills?
Oh, yes. I do. I do voices.
What are your skills, girls?
Oh, we can dance. You mean like dancing? We're really good dancers.
Yes!
We've come to this planet looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake.
We're happy to be in America. Don't ask for a green card.
I want you in the worst way.
Mr. Matsumoto. Martha, can I call you Martha?
No, you may not.
Okay.
Human resources lady.
Oh, you know, it's Pam.
I'm sorry. Well, Pan.
No, my name is Pam.
Are you saying Pan or Pam?
I'm saying Pam. Yeah, I'm sorry. Who is this gentleman sitting behind you?
Hello, Ms. Lady.
Do you have any experience?
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
We're not generally comfortable in an office setting, I would say.
I get cooped up.
Not so task-oriented. Not a workhorse.
I also get headaches from computers, so I can't be around them for too long.
I take stuff.
What's your policy on Columbus Day?
We work.
Really? The guy discovered the new world.
We're slow learners, and we're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
We're also slow learners.
I thank you for your time.
Actually, sir, I really need this job to impress a girl.
Will you leave now, please?
Please leave this office. We're done with this interview.
Do we get any sort of souvenir?
Get out of my office!
Hey, we tried, right?
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
resume.
Let's do this, you know, you guys are hired, you're in, you know, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever and I don't see it.
Great.
Cool. All right, I heard some chuckles, so that went over well then. That's good. If you've been in a position to hire people, or maybe you have interviewed, maybe you're that person in that chair, but you may have had some experiences like that. I've been hiring people for 15, 18 years now, and seen a lot of kind of different personalities and different things come up in interviews. So anyway, so that's just fun. That'll get us going. Okay, so we want to talk about talent. And for any good talk or speech, right, you want to define your terms right up front. So we go right to the dictionary and we look up talent and find out what we see there. Because you think of a lot of different things. There's a lot of different connotations to talent. So actually, the first definition we found is this one here, which is probably what most people think of. It's a special natural ability or aptitude, right? And this is when you're interviewing the traditional sense, this is what you're looking for, right? You're looking for hard skills. If you're looking for developers, you want to know that they can code in certain languages. If you're looking for marketing people, you want to know their PR skills or their graphic design skills for videography. They want to be able to put a video together. So these hard skills are what you're looking for when you're recruiting talent. That's what a lot of people think of. But we want to change that a little bit, that definition, not change it. We actually want to go to the second definition that we found in the dictionary. And we moved it to the top because we think when you're recruiting talent, especially at an early stage company, you're surrounding yourself with people that are ultimately going to determine your success. So you want to find people that have a capacity for achievement or success. So that is their talent. And the example there is a talent for winning. So you want to find people that have that same drive, that same thirst for success that you do. And that's how you're going to create your team and surround yourself with those type of people, because it ultimately determines your success. And Steve Jobs is one of those guys, he's thought a lot about that. And he said, the secret of my success is that we have gone to exceptional lengths to hire the best people in the world. So notice that statement there. He didn't say I hired the best engineers or the best design guys or the best marketers. He said the best people. So he was looking for some of those intangible qualities of that achievement and success that we want to look for when we surround ourselves with a team, especially in an early stage. Okay, so if you were here last month for our presentation on finance, we told a story about Betty and George. Betty and George had lost their jobs, and so they decided to strike out on their own and start their own companies separately. And George, let's start with Betty. She made a lot of really good choices and was achieving success by the end of that presentation according to her finances. And I do suggest you go to our YouTube channel and check that presentation out. It's well worth your time. But Betty was doing good, and she was in a position to start growing. George, unfortunately, didn't make some good choices and did not achieve the success he was looking for. And so we're going to pick up that thread again here with Betty, because she was the successful one. So we're going to talk about her journey a little bit. And like I said, she got to a point where she was ready to take her company to the next level and start to realize some of her goals. It's growing, and she knows that she has some deficiencies. And this is actually kind of funny, because last night we were talking with an entrepreneur founder, and he was talking about this team that he was envisioning with his company coming together. And he talked about, look, I'm very confident in the things that I know and that I can do, confident in that. I know there are things out there that I could figure out and I can do on my own if I have the time or the necessity. I have an aptitude, I can figure that out. But there are also things out there that I'm not going to be able to do. I don't have the capability or the talent or the time to do it. And so he was already thinking about this, and this is the point that Betty's at. She's got to go out and now try to figure out how to bridge this gap to get her company to grow. And so now I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Marc, and he's going to take us through that journey with Betty.
Good morning. It is a beautiful day outside, and we're in here, so I'll try to make it interesting. First of all, I do have another clarification. I have known Darren for 20 years. He has taken me out of retirement twice, which gives me mixed feelings about things, but he's always gotten me great jobs, so I must do something right along the way. The second one is everyone uses the word, introduces me as Dr. Liebman. And does everyone know what PhD stands for? Anyone know what PhD stands for? Those of you who know me know this. Okay, so when you start school and you get your first degree, what is it? It's BS. And we all know what BS is, right? Boy Scouts. Yeah, we wish. In my case, that wouldn't be true. I got kicked out of the Boy Scouts. So we know what BS is. And then you get a master's, an MS. And anyone know what MS means? More of the same. And then those of us who are silly enough to go get a doctorate, a PhD, you know what that stands for? Piled higher and deeper. So please take that, those definitions and apply them before you call me doctor, okay? So it's Mark. So we're going to talk a little bit about Dronehenge. Betty has grown. She's done an exceptional job, but now she has staff, but they have things they need to do now, and they don't have the expertise to do it. So the first thing we're going to do is, because this is going to be audience participation, is we're at your tables. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. At 11:22 by the clock back there, we're going to be done. I'd like each of you to talk with your group. What are you going to do? Be specific, but what are you doing? Come up with 3 or 4 ideas, and we'll share those in 2 minutes, and I will keep a countdown for you. So talk to the people at your table. What are you going to do? What's your next steps? Okay, let us get back together here. And who, if you remember being in school, you remember the teacher never had any control at all, right? Okay, thank you. So you have a choice. Either you can volunteer to speak, remember how they used to do that, or the teacher would call on you. So if someone doesn't raise their hand, I may call on you. And we're going to start because I'm left-handed at this table here. Who at this table would like to share something you talked about? One thing. Please.
One thing I like that Dan said was that there's a lot of tools out there that can oftentimes just accomplish the task or the need at hand without having to hire someone.
That's true. So in other words, you rearrange what people do based on skills they have or they want to have. And they can do that. Good. I appreciate that. What's another one?
I started with first to find the skills that I needed.
Then
once I knew what I needed, then I would know how to
Exactly. If you don't know what you need, you're probably not going to get it. Who else? I'm coming over this way, so someone better raise their hand. Okay, is it something you can do in-house? Is it long-term? Or is it something short-term that a contractor could do better or a consultant could do better for you? Good. Yep.
So we discussed that. Hello. Maybe the need for a mentor at this time, somebody that you can kind of bounce some ideas off of, get some outside perspective to really help you know where you really need to drill down and where maybe you're thinking too far ahead.
That's really important because a lot of times, especially if people are into their first business, the thing they look at is they want to get the answer they want to get as opposed to seeking out the advice of others. And that's always a great idea, is to find other people who've done similar things and have them help you and give you a perspective. Cool. Anyone else? Please.
We talked about building a team because you can't do it by yourself and you guys depend upon each other. And as you go forward, then you can achieve what you're trying to get done.
Absolutely. Great answers. Jeez. Do any of you want to come up and do this and I'll sit and listen? These are wonderful. I would say, and let me give you what my list looks like. I guess I have to point it that way. There we go. Okay, first of all, and someone mentioned it, do you have a plan? Do you know what you need, where it fits in your long-term plans, and the skills that you don't have, and different ways, as many of you said, different ways to fill that. It may be an employee, and for today we're going to assume that's the case, but as Glenn said, it may be a consultant. It may be something you need a skill for 3 months to do a project for you, and it's much better to look at a consultant to do that than to hire someone who's going to be on your staff for a long period of time unless that person can give you other skills you need. The second one is budget constraints. No one mentioned that. How much money do you have to spend on the person you want or the tasks you need done? And does that fit into your long-term plan? If you're a brand new company and you have 4 employees, Do you have the budget to hire a COO for $400,000 a year? Well, maybe that's why I have to think about doing something different. The third one is, do you have a job description? Once you've decided that you want to hire somebody or you need a skill, you put it down in very specific terms, because again, if you can't articulate what it is that you want, you're not likely to be happy with what you get. It's random. So those are the three things that we think about. And in the strategy planning we do, that's part of the process. What are the resources you need? And people, I will argue all the time that the biggest resource and most important resource any company has is not money, it's not product, it's their people. At the end of the day, it's always about your people. So, but make sure you get the right ones on. I'm not sure who said it, is, gosh, and I should know that, is the best thing you do is find the right people to get on the bus and sit in the right seats. Jim, thank you. Thank you. At my age, when you get this white hair, you know what this white hair, it used to be the gray matter that used to be in here. So all that stuff, so, you know, I apologize. But yeah, that's the secret. And that's in good to great, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about recruiting talent. And one of the things I'm going to say, and I'll say it more than once, when you're recruiting talent, don't be impatient. The first person you find may not be the person that you ultimately could find or will find. Maybe, we don't know that, but take your time and make sure that person fits the need you have and the team you have, and that they can do things different than just what you're hiring for them going forward, that they can grow with your company. So what information do you need from candidates? Is that information reflected in your job application? Each job application that I work on here and through my career has looked different. And big companies want to have exactly the same application for every single job, and you know what? Doesn't work. Doesn't work. It depends on what information you want. So you need to sit down first and brainstorm the information you want, being very specific, and ask those questions going forward that will answer that and help you do your screening. Second one is, and this is probably the most important star up there, have you spent the time long-term building a pool of people you know in the industry who you can go back to and talk to when you have a job that they might fit? Because you watch a person grow in a job, and I'll use being in public schools, you watch the teachers and you watch your young administrators, you talk to the superintendents in other districts about their really cool people, and then you steal them. No, that's probably not ethical. But you build a pool of people and relationships you build that they know you, you know them, and if you have a position that this person over here is the right person, you already have that foundation. And I would argue that at the end of the day, those relationships will be the most important ones you'll use in hiring people. Next one is, what about family referrals? I didn't want to put the word nepotism and nepotism on up there, but yeah. What about family and other referrals? What do you think? Is that a good idea, bad idea? Isn't that the truth?
I've heard a lot of advice, don't do it. It ruins relationships, it hurts your business.
Okay.
What's your experience?
My experience goes both ways. I have to tell you that I hired a teacher once that became a very, very close friend of my wife's and mine, she and her husband. And I have to say that when she had her first child, and rightfully so, she became an incredible mother, but she didn't continue to be an incredible teacher. And I ultimately had to let her go. It's very painful, very painful. And the other part is expectations that friends and family will have. On the other hand, I've seen it work wonderfully. It can work really well. It depends. But understand that friends and family have expectations. And you need to be very clear that when they come to work, they're working. And when they leave, they're your friend or your family. And you have to help them understand, and yourself as well, that they're an employee when they come work with you. That's my best advice. Anyone else? How many of you have had a family member work for you really successfully? Cool. So it does work. It does work, and it's a case-by-case basis. You know, there are some companies that work wonderfully well there. A husband and wife spend all their day together, and it works. My wife would probably shoot me after about 2 o'clock because we have a lot of things in common, but she likes doing things her way, and I like doing things my way. Not a good idea. So something to consider. It's a serious decision. Do you want to use a search consultant? Search consultants, especially at the C level or director level, have pools of people that they can pull on, and they can help you find the skills you want. That's the good news. The bad news, they cost an arm and a leg, as much as a half-year salary. And as a startup or a small company, that's a lot of money for you. So you have to play them off. If it's a very specialized position, of course you may want to use them because it's the only way you're going to find them. But it's a tough decision. But they will usually have people that they know well and recommend. And I've used that, and it's worked well. But it does cost. It'll cost you. So financially, it may or may not be a good search consultant. And again, I'll go back to if you've built the relationships, you may not need them. Okay. I would tell you the most important thing is right now be involved in organizations and associations that'll introduce you to other people in the field. If you're going to church and knowing your people there, if you have people who, like Darren and I, we scuba dive together, okay? You know, how do you know people? But get to know people who are in the same industry so that I think that's the most effective way to finding people. Last one is where do you post these jobs? Who's posted jobs and where have you posted them? Where have you posted them? Yeah, BYU Bridge has, especially in the tech industry, we couldn't be in a better location any place in this country. Absolutely true. Who else? Any of you used, go ahead, please. LinkedIn. We've used them here and very, very successfully. The downside is they do charge you. There's a cost involved. So, but they have fun. Anyone else? Other places? Any of you heard of Handshake? Yeah. What is Handshake? I'm sorry. Yeah, and by the way, if I can't hear you, I have hearing aids, and my wife and I argue. My audiologist says I'm hard of hearing, and my wife says I'm hard of listening. You know, my doctor's right, maybe. But yeah, Handshake is another posting organization, but it works through the job centers at colleges. I was able to sign up for what? For one of the ones that we did here, I posted at 27 universities like that. So one posting, you don't have to rewrite it 27 times. It goes out to all of them, and that's very, very effective when you're looking at entry-level jobs or people who are alumni, because it posts to both. And that's a really good, and it's free. That's the nice part of it. Other places you've found employees under rocks?
There's a couple of places out there, like a place called EffectiveSoft, and a couple other places
Okay.
where actually you can hire just a project manager or just an engineer or just, like the whole gamut of positions for relatively cheap. I can get developers there for $35, $40 an hour, which is
Wow.
They're across seas, but they do have an office in California, so you actually have somebody that you talk to, and they have all of that. But I was really surprised about the cost factors. There's a couple of them out there.
Yeah. So, and to the point that yes. Okay. Super. So look at a lot of different places. My experience, I don't know about yours, is I found some of the most wonderful employees I've ever hired in places I never thought I would have looked. So as broad a net as you can throw, do that before you make a decision. And again, I'll say, look at a bunch of candidates before you decide. It may be the first one that you end up hiring, may not be, and you don't know until you've taken a look at what's available. Okay, so we've done the recruiting. Here's George. George, last time, if you weren't here, and I encourage you to go on our website and find out George's story. He basically messed up his planning process, didn't figure out the finances, and his company didn't do very well. So we left him last time coming to interview with Betty. So who do you interview? How do you decide? You've got, for sake of discussion today, let's say you have 10 candidates. How do you decide who to interview? Or do you interview them all? Yeah, resume is one. What's another one? What's another one? Google them. Sure, LinkedIn, Google, see what they've done. Absolutely. By the way, you always remember that resumes are written by the person who sends them to you. And that sometimes leads, there's been my experience, and we see it in the papers every once in a while, people tend to enhance their experience. And I think looking at other sources is always really important. Who else? What else would you use?
One of our top ways to find sharp people are through referrals. And so if someone you know that is bright and has a great network, naturally they have bright people in their network as well. And so whether it's a current employee or just a mentor, if someone refers someone, I value their experience probably a little bit more than someone that's just coming in without any type of referral.
Great. And in fact, at Imagine Learning, they used to give bonuses for people who referred people who were ultimately hired. It's a neat way to, that's a neat network. Nobody said, look, go back and look at your job description of what you were looking at and match it to their application. Make sure they're doing what it is you need done, and not just the person you wow, that's a really cool person. Now, I will tell you that a lot of people say, look at the person and hire for potential as well. And I would agree with that. Sometimes you find a person that you can get the bright person who you can teach a skill. Sometimes you need a person with a skill. But it was, who was it that, was it one of the sites I was looking at as I was developing this was talking about a programmer. Do you want someone who's been a programmer for 15 years or someone who you can teach programming to that is incredibly bright and probably won't stay at the job a whole long time? And I can't answer that question, but it's a great question to ponder as you're looking through your applications. What about resumes? What do you think about resumes? Yes? No? Don't care? Again, how many people ask people who think they're really bozos to write their letters of reference? Probably not. And some people will phrase them so you can read between the lines, but more times than not, go beyond those letters of recommendation. Talk to people who didn't write letters of recommendation at their previous employers, or again, if you've built your network, as you said, someone who knows someone probably gives you a pretty good story. How to interview effectively and with whom? Do you interview alone? How do you figure out what questions to ask? Are you aware of the legalities? How many of you have the same question, you ask the same question to all the candidates for the same position? Do you know that's one of the things that can get you in big trouble if you don't do it? You're supposed to ask the same questions or questions that are in the same topic area to all of your candidates that you interview. So that's why people give you, especially in large companies, they give you a set of questions and you ask the same question to the 10 people you interview. That's a legal issue. So you have to be really careful in your interviews. That doesn't mean, however, you can't ask other questions beyond that. But you have to ask, the interviews have to be generally the same topics, same types of questions. So beware of that. Second is, where are you going to find questions to ask? And you're going to hear a prejudice about where Yeah, you can. You can go online. There are a lot of good questions. Will you raise your hand or just drinking water? Oh, that's a better thing than asking questions. Yes?
So I think it all comes back down to your selection criteria.
Yes.
If your selection criteria is spot on, you can find behavioral-based questions. Those are typically great for asking. It all ties back to your selection criteria. If you know what you're looking for, you know how you want to measure it, then the types of questions will help you get there.
Right. Go back to your job description and your criteria. Absolutely. And you mentioned something else, behavior-based questions. You want to ask questions that are going to elicit more than facts. Really important. And the best way to do that is ask people. Try out your questions, just like anything else. You want to know about the person. One of the examples, but let me say, before I go on, you have to be careful about non-fact-based kinds of questions. You have to be very careful with that. There's a lot of things you can't ask. Best one I remember is my wife was a commercial loan officer and a manager. And when she interviewed people, this is way back when everybody smoked, and she didn't want a smoker, so she would sit down at the table and she would push an ashtray to their side of the table. Never asked the question, but pretty much found out who smoked and who didn't. So, but you can't ask certain things, and be careful and seek counsel about the questions you have, because asking the wrong questions can end up getting you in a lot of trouble. But go back to your specific criteria for posting, your job position, and the data that led you to say, we need this position. By the way, job titles, that's a really interesting thing as well. Job titles have changed dramatically today, in today's world. I try to keep them as simple as possible so that even before someone reads the job description, it tells them what they need to know. What about background checks? Should you call previous employers? Do you need permission to call back previous employers? Mike, yes?
It depends on what your job is. If your job is specifically targeted towards financial stuff, then you want to have some background checks on different things. If your job is an entry-level something or other and somebody has a criminal background, probably doesn't matter that much. And then you're also looking at your background checks. You've got to consider the context for what questions you're asking and who you're asking it for. Sometimes the feedback you're going to get is not going to be it's not going to be helpful.
Right, I agree. Also be aware that companies have policies and there's state and federal laws that prevent people from telling you anything you really wanted to hear. And many, especially larger companies, will give you the date of hire and the date of termination. They won't give you the reasons for it. That's all you can hear. So depends on what you're looking for, whether that's a valuable use of your time. It used to be you always had to call 3 people before you hired a person, and it turns out in many cases that's a good idea. Most cases not. All right, yes? I can do that. Oh, thank you. Yes, Daniel. Where's Daniel? Daniel, come on up here.
I thought you were just going to maybe hand me a mic for a 10-second response.
Oh, no. We want you up here. Daniel is the CEO and founder of
Journeyfront.
Journeyfront. Why?
Journeyfront.
Yes. And tell them what you do. It's so cool because this is taking data to the next level and hiring a more effective process.
I tend to have a loud voice, so maybe it won't matter.
I don't think it is on.
Anyways, I'll speak really loud. What we do is we basically help companies improve the accuracy of the decisions being made. Some of the questions that have been put up here. So you're all probably familiar with applicant tracking systems, Bamboo HR, Greenhouse, Workday. They're all about tracking applicants efficiently through the process, whether they be the right applicants or not. They're a little lighter on that in that respect. So we are a new kind of HR software. It's called a predictive hiring system, which is not about improving the efficiency of hiring as much as it is about improving the actual accuracy of the hiring decisions being made. So one way we do that is getting at the different attributes you should be looking for. So for example, if anyone in a company right now has positions with over 30 people in that position, and especially if you have high turnover, high variability in performance across those positions, which is likely, we can help companies build predictive models and identify across various dimensions of a person, their interests, their values, their personality, their competencies, what attributes actually drive performance, retention, satisfaction, engagement, et cetera. And then you can screen candidates using those algorithms that'll spit out statistical predictions that actually are continuously learning. So as you continue to hire, track how well those candidates do, those predictions will get more and more accurate as the algorithm just responds to where we got the predictions right, where we didn't get them right, and zeroing in on how to optimize that continuously. And a new thing we're also moving into, which is kind of exciting, is you asked, how do we ask the right questions? I was nodding my head when you're saying you have to ask the same questions continuously. Right, if I ask you what's the square root of 1,227, then I ask this
14.
person what's your favorite color, you might not be adequately screening the two people for their respective abilities, right?
Right.
So we are moving into interview analytics as well that will actually tell you things like which interview questions actually predict performance and which are bogus. So Google, for 10 years, used to use brain teasers to screen applicants, meaning if they get a brain teaser right, they're probably more likely to be a great employee at Google. And they actually recognized, wait, maybe that's a hypothesis. Let's test it, and found that it had no correlation whatsoever with performance, and they'd been using it to screen out poor candidates for years, right? So using a software like Journeyfront, it would surface what's working, what's not working in your hiring process, which interviewers are getting it right, not getting it right, which attributes are the right attributes, the wrong attributes to be looking for, which ways are the right ways to screen for those attributes, things like that using predictive analytics.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we should be using data, and we should always be testing our hypotheses. And sometimes we're so sure we're right, and the data probably tells us we should rethink.
Right.
So, anyway, thank you. And by the way, you'll be around afterwards
Yeah, I will.
to be chatting.
Over here, yeah.
Thanks. Another really great way. I mean, hiring is a science and an art, but sometimes we forget about the science part. Okay, so we're now going to hire someone. How do you select a finalist? Some people say by the gut. It feels right. I've made mistakes by doing that sometimes. Sometimes I've been spot on. Sometimes we look at can they do the job, and I would suggest the latter is often more important than the former. Can they do the job you need done? What was one of the quotes I looked up? It says, hire slowly, fire quickly. You want to avoid the second part. If you spend more time up front, the second part doesn't happen as often. So I suggest you really look analytically, and that you don't usually do it by yourself. Do it as a team. Have people come in and work with you. And a lot of companies actually bring in outside experts. So if it's an area, like if I were hiring a programmer, I would be the last person in the world who should make that decision. Okay? But I would bring a consultant in, or someone who is a programmer, and someone who has another skill that I need, and actually have multiple perspectives on picking your finalists. I think it's really important not to do it just yourself, and not just to trust your gut. Although I have enough gut to make good decisions, other people do, but I suggest that it is not the best way. Okay, second, and we often forget this, is the offer employment contract. You have to be really clear on what you can afford and on what kind of offer you want to make, especially at C-level, because you're going to have to deal with things like salary, equity, benefits, and for different employees, different things are going to be really important. If I have 5 young children at home, guess what's going to be really important to me? What do you think? Yeah, I'm going to need some, give me a salary, that's all good and well, but if I can't also pay for the doctor's bills that inevitably come when kids, yes, I know yes, thank you. I'm being told I'm talking too much, which is not the first time. Anyway, think about the package you're going to put together in the contract itself. Also make sure your contract covers the things like disclosure, especially with startups with new ideas. You want to protect your intellectual capital. Look at those things that you really need to have in it and the employees who you're looking at hiring. And the last one, and I would tell you this is the most important one, is before you ever offer someone a job and hire them, have a sit down with them, which is a long conversation that's a two-way conversation about your expectations of them as well as their expectations of coming to work for you. That balance is absolutely critical, when we go into the last topic we're going to talk about, which is retention. And this is my own quote, but retention of good employees is a key factor in the success of your business. Keeping those people who are doing a great job and making it such a great place to be that they don't want to leave is one of those factors over the long time that will help you grow and be successful. Companies that keep turning over people have a much harder time being successful. So I'm going to skip this one because you're still pointing the finger at me, and I'm a finger at me. Excuse me, I was a Freudian slip. But let's talk a little bit about that. And I'm just going to give you 4 real quick bullets to think about. People stay and work where they're having fun, they're challenged, and they get rewarded for what they do. And I'm going to change rewarded to acknowledged. It is absolutely amazing over the 40 years I've worked and hired and managed people, that giving people really positive feedback when it's deserved and giving them recognition is one of the best ways of keeping people with you. If they know how valuable they are, they're more likely to stay. Having a plan for onboarding new employees, also tremendously critical. I am always amazed how many people get jobs and they come to work the first day and you work over there, and that's what they get. We also have another roadie group with us. And Colin, where are you? Okay. Yeah, I told him I'd be done by 7 minutes ago. He is, my roadmap. What they do is they have software that will help you develop a plan for onboarding and keeping your employees long term that holds you and them accountable. And if you have a chance, we can get you some information on them. Providing regular feedback. I'm a strong believer in evaluation, not because we can fill out a form. I hate forms. Matter of fact, as a superintendent, I never evaluated any employee with a form. It was always longhand, and it was never written until I'd had the conversation with them. Good evaluation is about reinforcing the great things people are doing and working with them, setting goals for that next challenging step, or helping them correct something that they need to do differently. It's not about being a hammer. It's not about the records, which you have to keep. You need to know you have to have some record. But giving people regular feedback about how good a job they're doing and what their next steps are, and challenge them, and giving them the opportunity to talk to you about what they do, absolutely critical part of keeping people. And the last one is offering appropriate compensation packages to meet company needs. My last superintendency was in a very poor part of San Jose, California. If you went 15 miles around the corner, you went to Menlo Park. Menlo Park offered $30,000 a year more for the same experience than I could afford to pay. So they would come to work for me for 5 years, and they were gone. They wanted that $30,000. So we had to figure out other things to retain those in terms of the environment, their involvement in their teaching, and other things that kept them with us. And we did better as soon as we did that. $30,000 was a lot of money. When someone's earning $50,000, they can earn $80,000. It was a big deal. So you need to offer compensation packages in addition to everything else that meets the needs of your employees. It may be benefits, it may be equity, it may be any number of things, but know your employees well enough that you meet those needs as well. And with that, I'm done. Of course, some people think I've been done for a long time.
Just stay up here.
I'll just sit down here.
Okay, so really quickly, because I realize I'm keeping you from your lunch now, and that makes people grumpy. But as you've seen this whole process, this hiring process, recruiting, and then making offers, doing interviews, and then your retention plans to keep people. So it's a good idea to get a lot of these policies and procedures done now up front. Put a little thought into it as you build this team, right, that's going to determine your success. Get some of these policies and procedures down on paper, because that keeps you on plan, and it also sets expectations for employees of what they can expect when they come into your company and working with you. Because this team you're putting together determines your success, you should also look at it as you're helping to determine the success of those people you're bringing on the team. And so you can do that by just keeping good records and by putting those policies down up front. So we talk about a personnel policy manual. That could be your employee handbook. And that way your employees, they know where to go for frequently asked questions, or your policies as far as discrimination and harassment and those types of things. They can also find their time off policies, which is a big deal to most employees, and your salary policies, pay policies, those kind of thing. Growth and promotion, like Mark was talking about, have a good plan for your employees when they're coming in. They want to know that you're invested in them just as much as they're looking to invest into your company and your success. So reciprocate that. Documented evaluation practices. That was also Mark talked about that, where you're bringing people in, you're having a sit-down conversation with them. Do document it, keep it there, because that becomes your set of expectations for each other. I was in a position where I was doing a lot of employee reviews and performance reviews. And for me, it was actually pretty easy. If you're engaged with your employees on a daily basis and know what's going on, those performance reviews are pretty rote and standard. In Boeing, one of the bigger companies I worked in, you had semi-annual and then annual reviews, and the annual one was the big one. But those were always pretty well already established because we'd been talking almost every day along the way. So everybody knew the expectations, they knew how they were doing. I got feedback from them on how I was doing. So those were just kind of to meet the corporate standard. But if you're engaged with your employees and doing a good job, those will be easy reviews to have. Your harassment and discrimination policies. When you get
anti-harassment.
Yeah, I don't think you want a policy of harassment.
Yeah.
You want to have that down so when people come, they join your team, they know that they have a way to resolve problems. Invariably, when you get a group of people together, problems will arise. And so it's good to set right up front how to resolve those problems, and that goes right back into that complaint resolution policy. So it sounds like a lot of work, but you're saving yourself a lot of headache down the road if you sit down and put some thought to this as you're putting that team for success together. I think that's all we got today for this portion. So we would love to take some questions now. And again, you're keeping people from lunch, so think of that as you ask a question.
Really quick, Mark, this question is for you. How, benefits are so expensive for startups. So how important is it to have benefits as a startup company? What do you think?
It depends on who you're hiring. If you're hiring me, I'm so old, I'm past Medicare, so I'm probably okay, and benefits aren't as important as, for me personally, work environment. But again, if you have 5 kids under the age of 8, and your salary is what you live on every day, benefits become pretty important. They're huge, and it's a balance. It's like everything else. You go back to your financial plan. Can you afford to do that? And what benefits do you offer? Some benefits don't cost anything. Giving people Columbus Day off, while it didn't solve the problem there, is a productivity issue. It's not a financial issue. So can we do something? How do we put something together that the employees appreciate and meets their needs?
And it's also, just to follow up with that, it's also one of the advantages of being a smaller company is that as you bring people in, you can modify and change those benefits to meet the needs of your employees. So a big company like Boeing, it's set. Here's what it is, because they're corporate mandated. It's coming down. As a smaller company, you can evolve with the people that you bring in and change that benefits package and tweak it here and there to meet the needs of your employees.
Right, and I would tell you, I've worked at one company that the biggest thing for the employees was a 401k. It wasn't health benefits. It wasn't a lot of other how many days off they got. It was a 401k. And so you just have to know your employees and figure out how that fits into your cash flow and your budget, and what is it worth. A lot of times, I have an old saying about budgets because I used to hear the comment, we don't have enough money for that. I would argue that there's not a company in the world that doesn't have the money to do what their first priority is. So you have to look at how high a priority it is. For me, it was always people. When I had great people, I never had to worry about anything else. But again, working with teachers, they always wanted more benefits, so you had to come up with a balance. You had a question?
Yes, and please don't judge me based on the question that I'm going to ask.
I never judge people. I'm usually wrong.
Right. The reason I say that is, I've listened to what you have presented. I hear you. I hear what Steve Jobs kind of advocated, hire people, not necessarily talent. Now, if you have two companies, company A and then company B, and then company A says, okay, the manager says, I'm going to hire people, talented people. But then company B says, I'm going to hire just people. Now, this is a broad question. What are your thoughts about those two companies? Which one might thrive and which one might not?
Well,
It depends.
Yeah.
I love that economist answer, right? It just depends. Or where's my father-in-law? He's a financial planner. So whenever you asked him a question about finances, he would always start with, well, it depends. Because both companies could be successful. They just have a different approach to how they recruit talented people, right? There are hard skills that you need. So if you're hiring a developer, they do need to know how to code. But there's other things that you can look for in intangibles. So it's really not a mix. You got to find what works for you and what works for your company as you're hiring.
Yeah, it's Ahmed, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Ahmed, good to see you. I like your question. I love a quote that Marc has on his wall that says, in this regard, that says, talent or skills determine the floor. Character determines how high you can go, the ceiling. So it's not an either talent or character. It's both. And the mix of that determines how high you can go.
And I think the answer is, what is long and short-term needs? If you're a startup and you need a coder right now, you need a really good coder. But if I have two coders and one keeps saying, but we could, and the other one says, what do you want me to code? I'm going to go for the first one. Because I think at the end of the day, you hire people. That's just me. Of course, there needs to be a minimum floor, okay? But beyond that, I want the person who's going to challenge me every day with new ideas and different ways of doing it. And maybe I say, not today, but I want them to bug me to the point I can't stand it, because that's the person who's going to take my endeavor further. But that's just me. Other questions? Wow, well, then Betty and George and their team and ours, thanks you for being here today. We really enjoy doing those things, and all of us are going to be here for the rest of the day. So if you have questions, by all means, stop and let's talk.
Thank you.
Darren? Okay, great. Thanks you guys.